Good evening. Welcome to a very special evening. My name is Ernest Dollar. I am the director of the City of Raleigh Museum and the Pope House Museum. We're glad you joined us for this very special evening to explore a incredible chapter in Dorothea Dix Park's history. It's my pleasure to introduce Kate Pierce, who's the director of the Parks Planning Commission, and who's going to give us a little bit of an update on the park itself, a little bit about it.
Great. Thanks, Ernie. And it's so wonderful to be with everyone virtually tonight. Dorothea Dix Park is the site of one of the most exciting and important urban park projects in the U.S. today. It is a land with a deep and complex history, from Native American hunting grounds to the site of a plantation with an enslaved workforce to the state's first mental health hospital. From the beginning, we have been keenly interested in uncovering the long history of this land, tracing its legacy, and reconnecting people to place. And through the work of the City of Raleigh Museum and Ernie and the generosity of this amazing family, we now have one of these stories to tell. So just a thank you to all who are involved to ensure that as we dream and plan and build the future Dix Park, we do so in a way that remembers and honors and confronts its past. So thanks for letting us be a part of this, Ernie.
Oh, thanks, Kate. Thanks for all your support. Tonight's presentation we'd love to thank those who helped out, the Raleigh Television Network, who helped produce this documentary. The folks at Dix Park Conservancy are wonderful to work with. The City of Raleigh's communication department was invaluable in this. And there's a lot of folks came together to make this short, sweet video what it is that we would love to share with you this evening. I kind of want to just kind of give you a little bit of context for this video. So what you're going to see tonight is the story of a journey. It's a new chapter in a journey that began over 3 centuries ago. And it involved 8 generations of people, an incredible journey as they went from Africans to Americans in this one spot in Raleigh, North Carolina. And it's an incredible journey. And as a historian, once in a lifetime do we stumble upon these stories, and to be able to put together so many people's lives and to glue them together to tell a much larger story, and then to connect the past with the present has been an incredible experience. So not only for the family, but for myself, has been a new chapter in a wonderful journey that we're hoping to share with you this evening. So the documentary kind of talks about this story, this sort of improbable discovery of one man in one little mention of one article that led to an incredible new chapter in the story that's been written very much in the founding pages of the American experience. So tonight we'd like to sit back. We're going to show this documentary. It's about 13 minutes long. And then we're going to sort of talk with some of the family, get their reactions about the video, what this experience was like for them, and what the future holds for this story, because it is still going on, that the past is never always in the past, that those chapters are yet unwritten, that we're hoping to write here tonight. So we'll please ask you to sit back and enjoy this short video as we explore the life and legacy of John Hunter and his family who are with us today.
In 2015, the City of Raleigh purchased the site of North Carolina's first asylum, Dix Hospital, in hopes of turning it into one of the United States' largest urban parks. The site's 300-plus acres offer expansive space for play, learning,
but it's fascinating that grave was put in, right?
Exercise, and other programs. As the park prepares for the future, it confronts its past. Since 1856, the hospital helped the state's mentally ill, but for 150 years before then, it had been a plantation operated by enslaved Africans. Out of the exploration of this dark past emerges a story of resilience, hope, and family that stretches into the 21st century. The story begins here at the City of Raleigh Museum. In 2017, the research for an exhibit on the Dix Park site was funded by the community nonprofit, the Dix Park Conservancy, in order to explore and help the public understand the park's future and its past.
The Dix Park Conservancy has as its core a respect for the history that's represented on the site. Well, the story of the African American presence on the park will unfold. We know parts of it, and we'll try to be faithful to what we can learn.
When the City of Raleigh Museum began work on the Dorothy Dix Park exhibit, we wanted to make sure that we would be able to tell the future plans for the park, talk about the patient experience of those in the hospital, and the employees that took care of them. But in our research, we discovered that for a century before the hospital was built, had been the plantation of one of Raleigh's founding fathers, Colonel Theophilus Hunter.
Theophilus Hunter arrived in what was Johnston County in the 1750s and established a tavern, Hunter's Lodge. He served as Justice of the Peace, served during the American Revolution, and afterward helped to establish North Carolina's new capital, Raleigh, in 1792. But Hunter's prosperity was fueled by the enslaved men and women who worked his farm. While researching, Dollar made an incredible discovery. While looking at the 1870 federal census, the first that listed the formerly enslaved, he found a former slave with the name of Hunter. Dollar wondered if there was a connection to Theophilus Hunter in Dix Park.
Looking through the records, I wanted to see if any of the enslaved African Americans took the last name of Hunter after freedom. Going through the records, I discovered John Hunter, who had an incredible age, and I calculated he was born sometime in the 1760s. Now, thinking about all the things he had seen and done in his lifetime, I knew there was an incredible story here.
It was not until Dollar discovered the obituary for John Hunter in December of 1876 that the story of this man became more clear. The mentions of Uncle John in the newspaper provided the City of Raleigh Museum with critical information that revealed who the man was, the life he led, and most importantly, who his family was. Dollar and his team faced a unique opportunity and the difficult challenge with the incredible story of one of Raleigh's Black founding fathers.
Once we discovered the story of John Hunter and all he had seen and done at a time of incredible odds, we were very curious. Could we do the impossible? Could we actually find some of his living descendants with us today?
One of the difficulties of pursuing African American genealogy is the fact that there aren't nice, clear-cut records to go to. But the value of doing African American genealogy is first and foremost the same value as with any other American. Secondly, it is knowing that before you, there were individuals who led ordinary lives, but they did extraordinary things. And getting to know that. Then there's the value of connection, knowing that you are connected not just to your immediate family, not just to your immediate community, but knowing that you are connected to a place and finding that place.
After months of searching historical records, John's family began to come into focus. John's daughter, Emily, married the Reverend Robert Lucas, a blacksmith and minister at St. Paul's African Methodist Episcopal Church. Their daughter, Narcissa, married Stuart Ellison. Ellison had been a carpenter as a slave and worked to build the insane asylum. After emancipation, he became one of the first African Americans to serve in the state legislature and became a builder of renown. One of his works was the church where he and his family worshiped, St. Paul's. Narcissa raised his three girls, Mary, Elizabeth, and Sophia. With each step and each new family member discovered, a picture of an incredible family emerged from the fog of time. A portrait of family descended from slaves who helped build, shape, and protect America. Veterans from the Spanish-American War and the Tuskegee Airmen. Women who defined modern dance and broke glass ceilings on Wall Street. Surveyors, politicians, and community leaders are all found in John's family tree. Eventually, the trail came to living descendants found in New York. The living legacy, 200 years in the making, was overwhelming news to a family who knew little of their connection to these roots.
I knew from my mom that we had history here. However, I never knew how rich it was, and being that our forefathers were so instrumental in the city of Raleigh of getting it established. I just was overcome with joy.
At first, I was a little shocked, and then after we started making the phone calls and the connections and everything, I never, met any of these people from DC. So it was nice. I was excited to see them, to chat with them, to fellowship, to just, meet family that I was totally unaware of. My grandfather's side of the family, I have heard that he was from Raleigh, North Carolina. I didn't have any other information on him other than he had family that was down in Washington, D.C., and that my aunts and uncles, his children, would go down and see the Washington, D.C. family during the summer months. But I did not know about his history from Raleigh, North Carolina at all.
In November of 2019, the City of Raleigh Museum invited the Hunter family to Raleigh to discover their lost history. Family members converged on the city from New York, Washington, D.C., Atlanta, and Charlotte to begin an amazing journey to meet their ancestors. But many who came had never met their cousins, while others renewed old family ties. The weekend in Raleigh would be a moving experience for all to reconnect with living relatives and learn about those in the past. The Hunter family's quest to rediscover their roots began with a trolley ride through Raleigh history and those places that could tell the story of how their family shaped North Carolina's capital. The first stop on the tour was the Spring Hill Plantation House, located just off Dix Park. Built around 1818 by the enslaved of Theophilus Hunter Jr., the home is the oldest connection to John Hunter.
Now, right around the house where old Theophilus is buried.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's one of the oldest graves in Wake County. But it's fascinating, that grave was put in the 1940s, and all of his family graves are gone too. So the white hunters didn't survive the development of this place except for that grave, which was put in the 1940s. All right, now let's go see, I think it's Mount Hope next. We're coming up on Mount Hope Cemetery. This cemetery was founded in 1872. So we think about Uncle John dying in 1876, Stuart Ellison dying after that. We suspect they're all out here. They're all out here, but in unmarked graves. So we're going to take you to some of those graves that we know are related to the family. And again, there's a couple more out here that we can't find. So, I mean, this is another chance for us to, in the future, to canvass the cemetery, to actually mark these graves.
Oh, you just flip it over, and on that side you see a name.
Wow.
Marshall. So it was flipped over and hit.
Yes, right here.
There's nothing like being refound by family.
So this is Sophia. Wow.
Sophia.
Wow.
And it looks like the packet was put together by her sister because it said the loving memory of my sister.
Yes. Well, Netta, you got to come see this. This says Sophia Lee, and it says in loving memory of my sister. So who was the other sister?
There was Sophia.
Elizabeth, was it?
Yeah.
There was Sophia, Elizabeth,
And Mary.
and Mary.
Mary. So
One of them.
Mary.
Wow, how beautiful.
My sister.
We'll be back. Right?
This trip exploring John Hunter has been very exciting, very educational. I'm happy that the invitation was extended to my family. The fact that John Hunter was so instrumental, John Hunter and Stuart Ellison were so instrumental in the foundation of Raleigh. Also, going to the Pope House, it played a part in finding that Dr. Manasseh Pope delivered our grandparents, our great-grandparents. This church that Stuart Ellison was part of the building of this building and what he did for the African Americans back there. Then there's John Hunter. Here was a man who in the 1800s was 100 years old and still giving back to the community and helping the community and helping the African Americans. It's been an awesome experience. Again, give thanks to the city of Raleigh for inviting us here. Thank you.
Well, I hope you guys appreciated that and enjoyed that. It's a short video, but it's very moving. I always, every time I watch it, it just is, it touches a part of my soul. And the RTN folks who at the Raleigh Television Network put together just did an amazing job. And thank you to the family for being a part of it and for coming down. So we kind of wanted to talk about with the family who's joining us here this evening, your experience and your family and sort of how this story has played into your lives. And we're joined by several folks I'm going to introduce this evening. First off, we have Valerie Ann Johnson, who is the Dean of the School of Arts and Science and Humanities at Shaw University. And she also serves on the North Carolina African American Heritage Commission. She is going to talk a little bit about sort of help put this story in a larger context. So, Mrs. Johnson, thank you for joining us this evening.
Thank you for having me. And first of all, I want to really offer my thanks to the family because I'm an anthropologist by training. I got my PhD in anthropology. So this sings to my soul to see the coming together of this family and how you're interacting and discovering one another is an amazing part of this story. I think that we don't want to lose the fact that you are our cultural keepers. Your history is not just personal for yourselves, but it's a collective history of African Americans journeying in this country. And it's one that we can celebrate, but also there's some harsh parts to the story. And so I want to just honor the family and say thank you for sharing this part of yourselves with us. I mean, it is an amazing thing. Now, Shaw University is not too far from Dix Park. So once COVID-19 is in a place where we can be able to go out and about, we'll be able to interact with the park. But knowing the connection to your family, I think, is part of this larger context. As chair of the African American Heritage Commission in North Carolina, we know that all of these different stories are connected. And in Raleigh alone, the Hunter family story is connected to Oberlin Village, to the Joel Lane House Museum that just opened up to commemorate the enslaved Africans. And that's the moment that we're in right now, where there's a reckoning of how African people, African descended peoples, have been an integral part of this country. Y'all are tangible proof of resiliency and a willingness to fight through some really oppressive and horrific times. So this is what's so exciting. You're also connected through this story to St. Augustine's HBCU, which is just north of where we are, as well as Shaw University, which is really close to the Dix property. And then there are the various churches, and I better not start listing them, Ernest, because you know I'll get in trouble. But that connection to St. Paul AME is really a critical one because it tells us something about who we are. So when you asked me to talk a little bit about why this is so important, it expands the narrative. It tells us that Raleigh would not be the city that it is now. North Carolina would not be the kind of state that it is that has given us so much in terms of Black leadership, Black contributions in entrepreneurship, without understanding that it comes from families like yours, this Hunter family. So what's exciting for me is that we get to tell a story that's connected to y'all. Y'all get to connect back down to us. And it also, Ernest, and this is what I found really important, y'all are a living example of why the census is so important.
Mm-hmm.
When people say, why is it that we have to do the census? That one line helped to open us up to who you all are, whose you are, and what you contribute, your family alone, contribute to this city. And we wouldn't have known this without some persistence with our historian, without the family holding on to various records and stories, and being willing to come and share that. So that's why this is important to me. And the last thing I'll say is, it also shows us that there's an importance with the African American cemetery preservation, that we need to know where we are buried, not because we want to live in the past, but it helps us be connected. When I watched how the family gathered around the various tombstones and started talking not just about who was dead, but who you are connected to, it was a touchstone. And that's what you all are providing for us, an historical touchstone that resonates across an entire African American universe. So for this, I thank you all. And I'm so honored to be a part of y'all's story. So now I'm part of the family. I'm just going to claim it.
Yes, you are.
Yeah, and it's an incredible story that I think especially for Dix Park, which is a growing, evolving park. But we are in an incredible period of we question how we remember the public memory of these stories and stories from the past. So my follow-up question for you is, how do we memorialize the story? How do we make sure the story is not forgotten in the future? And especially when it comes to the development of Dix Park, how do we remember these enslaved people?
So there's several ways. And again, I draw my anthropological roots, is that you've got to be able to celebrate the culture, so that you need to have times where folks come together to remember, to recollect. In Daughters of the Dust, Julie Dash had an important piece that said, that brought the family there to recollect who we are, how we are. So memorials don't have to be some kind of statue that you put up. They're in our living stories. They're in the materials that they made. I would ask the family, what are some of the traditions that have been passed down? What are some of the things that you all do? Like, what are the foods that really say this is our family? And there may be several different kinds of foods. Who has a tradition in the arts? Who's the singer in the family? All of these are ways that we memorialize. And I would say capture some of those. We can do it in book form. You can do it in video form. You can do a children's story. I would love to see a children's story develop. Putting that out there, family, so that the little people can understand a little bit about themselves, but also other children can see themselves reflected in your story. So that's a way that you would memorialize. On the physical plant itself, I think there needs to be some place where the memories can be shared. I don't know what form that would take. And this is just my understanding of public art and public spaces. I think the family should have a central part in designing a feature index that celebrates them. It needs to come from the family because you're celebrating John Hunter. Well, here is John Hunter in all of these various versions of his people. So let them come up with ideas that will celebrate their person and see what's possible. I don't know. But I think it's exciting to think about what can be. And that's the beauty of being in this moment, that we don't have to have something fixed. You don't have to have a bronze thing. The only thing about having the public art is you want it to be sustainable and durable, but it depends on what form it takes. I don't know what it could be. It could be a water feature that helps to tell that story. But the main thing is include the family, and then let the family talk to community, because the community also has a stake in what is happening in this beautiful public space. And let that synergy work together to create the memorial so that we don't have things that are counter to a collective understanding of ourselves. I think that's what's been a problem with other kinds of statuary around the country. It's been for a negative purpose. This is going to be such a commemorative, celebratory purpose to talk about this family. And so 100 years from now, when the anthropologist comes and say, who was here? Who are these folks? You will have told us. So that's how I see that you're going to leave this record of how you want to be remembered, how you want the family to be remembered.
Yeah, I think that's a wonderful answer. And we look at Theophilus Hunter's will when he dies in 1798. John is one of 60 people. So I hope that we only have 59 others to work on to tell that story of this family. So there are a lot more family stories out there yet to tell. But yeah, I think family and kin and kinship is center to this story, and hopefully will be the center of the next chapter at Dorothea Dix. So yeah, thank you.
And look at the catalyst that has been created out of this, all of this energy around this. It is wonderful.
Yeah,
so thank you.
I hope this is a flag.
Could I add something? Could I just a very quick response? I just wanted to say thank you, Dr. Johnson. One of the things that I think would be super exciting is to convene an annual colloquium, an annual conference, an annual symposium, because one of the things that John Hunter, just by dint of the fact that he lived to be 112 years old, he lived through the Revolutionary War. He lived through periods of time, including the Dred Scott decision. He survived that. He survived the Civil War. He survived times that were very, very dangerous to be a person of African descent. And where he was so beloved, as was written up in a local newspaper that Ernest has been so good about, sharing and highlighting. I would love for, Shaw, St. Augustine, somebody to really dig into the history of Black folk, John Hunter and the others. How did they negotiate these very dangerous times? And I dare say that this has an import for today's times and for today's conditions. What wisdom can we glean, can we unearth as a result of having meaning? I love to see a John Hunter Institute, but that's down the line. But an annual
hello.
really dig into this history of how really came through these very momentous pieces.
I think that's a wonderful idea, and I wrote it down. So thank you very much, because I think we can do this.
And Ernest, I just want to add one other thing. To play off of what Ray said, one of the things, Ms. Johnson, that we found, was Dr. Johnson, about John Hunter. We wanted also to know more about where he came from, and because with the other, and also, we thought that it is our understanding that the majority of the slaves came through the East Coast of North Carolina, and that there were not a much smaller number of slaves in that particular state. And so we think that there might be more of a connection between our family as well with the other 59 slaves that are there, as well as some of the other Hunter families or other families in Raleigh. We may that may not necessarily have the Hunter name. So we, as Mr. Dollar explained to us, there are historical records and slave logs and documents that maybe the universities and maybe the libraries or somebody that may have, that might be able to help us find out where John Hunter and those other 60 slaves came from. And then maybe also tracing back, because we're also really we're connected to Stuart Ellison, and we don't know his early background either. So we need that additional, I think we're just at the tip of John Hunter just opened the doorway, but there's a whole lot of history that we don't know that could connect us to the local community as well. And even reveal an even much more powerful story than what it is that we already know, since slavery kind of unveiled itself a little bit differently than it did in other aspects of the South.
And the connection to Stuart Ellison also, because he is a Black builder.
Yeah.
There's a project now that's underway that's really trying to document and look into these early Black builders in and about North Carolina. So that is something that is kind of in the works. So definitely we should be able to get some more information about Stuart Ellison. But that's a very good point that you're making. Where did he come from, and being able to do some more digging? So sounds like a collaborative project is being proposed.
Sounds like it. And so I wanted to definitely tell you the entire linchpin of this story, who you've heard from just a second ago, Ray Figueroa and his wife, Lynetta Worthy. And so, whenever you find these historical records, they don't really mean anything unless you connect them to people. So to track down some family living today was really hard. Historians, we find people who have been long dead for 100 years, but finding living people is tricky. Mm-hmm. So I found these three people, Juanetta, Wayne, and Wanda, living in New York. And you look for people with distinctive names. So I called Wayne Worthy and left a message. And whenever this guy with a Southern accent calls you in New York and texts about your slave ancestors, you instantly think it's a
hello. Can you hear me?
So,
hello, can you hear me?
One of the things we did is I tried to track down
Juanetta. Hello.
And try to figure out who she was married to, and I figured out that she was married to Ray. So I was able to contact Ray and track her down.
Yeah, who paid you?
So I definitely wanted to introduce the first person that we kind of talked to was Juanetta, and I called her up and kind of explained the story, hoping that she would believe me in this crazy story that I've been able to found. So I wanted to ask Juanetta and to try to talk about what was your experience when you got off the phone for the first time?
Well, I was really, so let me even start. First of all, I was really excited because, you know, we don't come from a family that talks much about their past. I mean, I knew we had family in Washington, D.C. I knew that at least that my grandfather had came from North Carolina. Um, we know a little bit about my grandmother, that her people came from British Guyana, but we knew nothing. And for Ernest to this opened the door for us to start researching our family and actually to start reconnect, to be truth be told, to really for the younger people to start connecting to the folks in Washington, D.C. So that was wonderful. I also
to me?
Something about how I like the ancestors are talking to
So
us.
why am I on this Zoom call if I like hello?
My niece, in
Yo, stop reading off kids. Hello. Hello, can you hear me? I can hear you.
Is it possible for you to mute him? I don't know who that is. Can he be muted?
Wow, that's not how you do it. Hello, who is this?
This is Juanetta. We're on a lecture. Mute your phone. Okay. So my niece, in January of 2019, she told us that she was having a baby. She was having a boy. And she says to us, I'm going to name him Hunter. So we say to her, that's a really lovely name. Where you get the name from? She says, I don't know. It popped up in my head. In June of 2019, that's when we get a call from Ernest. And Ernest says, you guys are connected. You are related to somebody named John Hunter. And there's a connection also. And so this is in 2019, which is also the year that the 1619 project comes out. So, and also, when Ernest first reached out, he went first to my brother and tried to reach out to my brother. My brother thought that it was a nut calling him on the phone, ignored him. Ernest stayed persistent and tried to reach out to some other relatives we have in Brooklyn that didn't respond. And then he stays persistent, and he finds my husband, Raymond, who teaches at Pratt. He finds Raymond's email address and information off of the internet because of some community projects that Raymond is involved in. But I don't have an internet present. The point is, what I'm saying is, look how the ancestors are talking to us. You know, Ernest could have said, I don't want to deal with this. You know, this is too much work, and left it at that. And so I think the story, I think that it's a story that is begging to be told. And as a result of it, it has brought all of us to our family, which is kind of spread out across the country, to be talking to each other more. So it's a long way of just saying that I believe that the ancestors are talking to us.
It blew me away to get off the phone with you as well, to actually make that connection. So it was a very moving and wonderful conversation after that. So what is the next chapter? Where does this project go from here?
Well, on our family side, and Missy will speak more to it, we are going to be having regular family Zoom meetings, so that we can update each other about the research and stuff that we've done, that we are doing on the ancestors that we do know. What we're hoping that the museum will be able to have the resources to do more research, to find out more about John Hunter, and those other 59 slaves that were on that Theophilus Hunter plantation, and that hopefully that there are other African American families in the local community whose names are have the name Hunter in it, or who want to research their own roots, and we may be able to find out that they're connected to those other slaves that were on that plantation as well, and that we may just find out we're related to some of those local families as well. So I just think that we need more research around John Hunter and the backgrounds of those other slaves.
Yeah, definitely, for sure. I think there's a lot more research to be done, and if the city will let me out of doing budgets and buying toilet paper, I would love to spend more time doing this research. I wanted to move on to somebody else who came down in November. Is Richie on the call?
Richie?
Yes, I am.
Hey, how are you doing?
I'm doing great, thank you.
Well, so are you in Washington, or?
Yes, I'm in Washington, D.C.
Or the Washington branch of the family. So you've kind of got the what we know so far about the family through the video and stuff I've sent out. So what else do you want to know about your family? What's the missing thing that you really want to find out next?
Well, I do want to reiterate what Juanetta talked about, the fact that this whole unearthing has brought everybody together. It's brought us closer to our New York family and other families that are out there. We've been, really, it's just amazing how it's all coming together. We really, I really wonder, where our family's bodies, what happened, and what about when you guys start doing this, pulling up this dirt, what happens if they find some bones or find something, we just wonder about where our families are, because we went out to where you took us, and it was wonderful. It was a really great experience for us all to see everything. And it's just amazing because a lot of our family, we have different skills, and we always wonder where these skills come from, like when Valerie mentioned, the people who sing, or the people who do art. I know the people in DC, we have a lot of artists in our family that draw. And so just to see this come to a circle for us is really great. So I just look forward to continuing to discover more things that connect us to our family. But really, we want to know what happened to the body, because there was a number of people that just disappeared, and I think that we talked about that as well when we went out to the cemetery, having a time, of course, when COVID hit in, we couldn't come back, but just having a time when we go through the cemetery and see what's there and, where we are, and just kind of put it together, but I'm just looking forward to discovering also, like where we came in, like what part of Africa did the slaves come from? So what part we're connected to. But the most and the best thing that has happened for us, again, especially for me, is being able to talk to our family in New York. Because before this time, we really hadn't had a lot of conversation with them. And, I know my mother, the older generation, they have, they know each other, but we don't really know each other. So now it's an opportunity for us to really see how we grow. And I'm just so proud to be a part of the family, a part of our family. I just feel like, we're just great people, and I love it. I love that we're really connecting now. We have something to, bring us to full circle. So I think this is a great thing.
Well, if we can keep up, we'll have you connected to all of Raleigh by the end of the year.
Okay, all right.
Just might be.
I think for me, certainly going to Spring Hill on the tour was pretty meaningful. But what really blew me away was going to St. Paul. That was my first time I've been to St. Paul, and it's just a beautiful church. And finding the names and the stained glass was a surprising, wonderful surprise. So how did you feel you going to St. Paul's and sort of being in that space that was built by Stuart Ellison?
Well, I felt connected. and I felt really proud to be there, and just to be there and look around at the things that he put together, and to know that, you know, this is a part of us. And it's just a wonderful thing that we've been able to look and see with our own eyes, you know, the things that our own ancestors made and where we came from, and to see that this was a person that was a good person. He did a lot for a lot of people, and just listening to all the stories that they told, and the way that the young lady who was at the church presented the information to us was really great, because it gave us a full picture of how hard he worked on things, especially after the church burned down and then they had to build, you know, rebuild. And so it just reminded me of our family as a whole, because we are those type of people that keep going and keep going. And I know our family has been through a whole lot, you know, and maybe things that we don't even know that each other have been through, but we've been through a lot, and we just keep going and keep going. And so we know now where that type of perseverance comes from. You know, it comes from somebody strong. Hey, Michael, it comes from somebody strong who has really, you know, built something and has really given us something to look forward to. So I'm just proud that we have that connection.
Yeah, I think the Wanda Cox Bailey, who you saw in the video, runs the Richard B. Harrison Library. You know, I think she said it eloquently, is that when you can connect to place and have a place that really grounds you, and you couldn't ask for a more regal and beautiful place than St. Paul's to ground you. And
Yes.
Talking to the folks at St. Paul's, they're very moved that they have brought some lost sheep back into the flock. So
Yeah.
they're very excited to see more of y'all back in Raleigh.
Well, thank you. We appreciate you, Ernest, and the city of Raleigh, and all the things that you all have been able to assist us with. And so I know that our family, you know, as a whole, we all want to continue to move forward with this project. It's something that we really look forward to. It's just great. You know, every morning we say good morning to each other. So it's just it's like we really have this big group of wonderful people together, you know, always pushing and always, you know, making everyone know that we care about each other. So again, thanks to the city of Raleigh, and thanks to you, you know, our family is coming together in ways that we couldn't have imagined.
I'm happy to be humbled to be a part of it, actually. And, you know, Missy, who's our next speaker, I think, you know, of all people who have been moved by that sentiment that, you know, has brought family together, you're it. You know, you organized the family reunion, and I've been telling people that I was gracious enough to be invited to the virtual family reunion. I have never laughed that much at a family reunion. And I was taking notes, and it was just, I was trying to scribble down what everybody's trying their relationships were, and it was a riot. It was a lot of fun.
Yes, it was.
So did this story inspire you to start to do these virtual family reunions?
Yes. This story inspired me to bring the family back together. I love family reunions, and so excited to meet everyone on the Raleigh, North Carolina trip in November. We laughed, we shared stories, we talked about what we learned, and we as well as saw as well as learned and saw, everything on the tour. We exchanged names, we exchanged phone numbers, email addresses, and pictures. In August, my cousin Jerry asked me if anyone considered having a family Zoom reunion call, because it would reunite the family and introduce new family members. And so several of us connected on Facebook, Messenger, and we have a family group called Our Precious Family on GroupMe, where we chat and we say good morning, we share stories. Everyone was excited about the Zoom call. Ernest, thank you for coming and speaking. And I loved how everyone introduced themselves. We met more family members on the call and connected more members to the family tree. I'm praying we can have a family reunion next year in New York City. or DC at someone's house, or book a hotel, or we can all visit Raleigh, North Carolina on another trolley tour with a bigger group and visit all the sites again, as well as the updates with Ernest.
Yeah, one of the amazing things about the family reunion, it struck me as some of the older members who hadn't seen each other since they were children.
Right.
You meet cousins every so often, but these women connected after decades, which I thought was pretty moving about it. So with this, being broadcast out tonight in this documentary, what do you think people should take away from your family story, or could learn from it? So what is the significance of what we're doing here tonight?
After hearing our story, people will come to realize that we have a beautiful family legacy. Our legacy started in the 1700s with family members playing an important role in founding and developing the city of Raleigh, with skilled construction workers, brick masons fought in the American Revolution, the Civil War. They held prominent high-level political and military positions. They fought for civil rights during the Black Reconstruction and may have been Tuskegee Airmen. John Hunter was born in 1764, lived to 112 years old. He was highly regarded and respected and respected in the community. I believe our ancestors are reaching out to us to help us find the missing pieces to complete our family tree. I would love for each of us to have a completed family tree with pictures, dates, and professions of each person that hang in our homes, to share history with our families and future generations. I hope people hearing our story will want to start researching their history.
Well said. And that's what we're trying to do is the next chapter is that your family are the ones that went north of the Great Migration in the 30s and 40s, but there are a lot of hunters and a lot of people came from the Theophilus Hunter Plantation in Raleigh. So we really want to reach out to the local folks, the local hunters, and those stories to share. And because I think that once we get collectively together, all these families' histories are going to start informing each other. And I think we're going to have more cousins come out of the woodwork pretty soon if we can have some together.
And I wanted to add something. One of the things that made me feel so good is to find out that our North Carolina relatives, because we talked about John Hunter, we talked a little, about Stuart Ellison, but there are some of the other members that are connected to the family that lived in North Carolina in the late 1800s, who, as Miss Missy mentioned, they were prominent military leaders, prominent politicians, and and a lot of those slaves were skilled laborers. We tend to always think that all the slaves did was pick cotton or they worked on rice plantations, and I have the feeling that because they were skilled laborers, probably had a lot to do with why our family probably survived during that time period. Maybe probably lived a little bit longer, and because of their skills, they were in demand. And I think that maybe a lot of I know there are a lot of Black families that find it painful and maybe don't talk about the past as much because they think that it's just about picking cotton and or working on a rice plantation. When you don't know your family member, you might have some really family members that made a major contribution to that particular to the country, and so we shouldn't be ashamed to want to find out what our family did or what they were about. I think they all made a major contribution. So
Yeah, I mean, when I started going through the family tree and putting it together, it is, it is truly an American story. Again, you talk about Tuskegee Airmen, politicians, veterans of the Spanish-American War. I mean, your family has just wandered its way through American history almost at every stage of the Republic. So, yeah, I mean, it's an incredible, stellar tree. And so I think that, we add more stories to it and add more people, you're just going to see this is such an American story. And yeah, I'd love to see more people tie into this and tell more stories. We did have one question come in on YouTube, and Valerie, you might be familiar with Charles N. Hunter. Someone asked if y'all are related to him. Charles N. Hunter was a former slave who was a prolific educator after the American Civil War. He was fairly big in Raleigh. And I think I don't know where he got his Hunter name, but he's more related to the Haywood family. So that's a great project to see if they can tie him into your family tree. And so I still think there are a lot of wonderful stories left on your family tree you have yet to pluck off and to reveal. So I think with more research that this project is going to grow, and hopefully we're going to expand it throughout the city.
Ernest, let's jump back. Was the question about Charles Young?
Charles N. Hunter.
Say that again?
His name was Charles Norwood Hunter.
Charles Norwood. Wait a minute. Charles Norwood Hunter. He's from Raleigh?
He is, and I've not been able to tie him into your family yet. But somebody was asking on YouTube about that.
Charles Norwood Hunter. He's as one of the ancestors. Okay. Yeah. That would be great.
Yeah, and we talked about the incredible icing on the cake to this story is to find out where John came from.
Yes.
And, to take that story back even further. And so our current research thinks that Theophilus Hunter came first from Gates County, North Carolina, which was on the coast. He came to Granville County and then moved down to what was in Johnston County. So we need to really follow what the white hunters were doing to understand where John came from, who his mother were, who his wife were, who were his other children. So there's still so many holes in this story, but we're closing in on it.
And one of the things I can say that it'll be a part of the North Carolina African American Heritage Commission is also looking at the first places that Africans disembarked when they were brought. So, and there are these coastal areas. And I think that when we find those records and then be able to tie, now we've got some names to kind of trace through. So this is why this is so exciting, because we're at the moment, like I said, where we're trying to find all these different connections and ties. There's also the folks who are escaping freedom roads. So given the family name, we can look for, okay, what was any of the family a part of those different trajectories. So there's quite, like Ernest says, there's a lot to unpack, and we've got tantalizing breadcrumbs sprinkled all over that I'm just ready to gobble up and find out, okay, where is this going to go? Where is this leading? So thank you, family.
Thank you.
Yeah. Ernest, Gates and Johnson County, are they on the east coast of North Carolina?
Gates is a coastal county for sure. It's out there. So, when Ray talked about those points of entry. So, the great thing about this story is that the white hunter descendants are as eager to help tell this story as you guys are. So they've been valuable trying to share their records and to provide what evidence they can to help solve this story. And, the details, those little nooks and crannies of those wills and bills of sale and just letters are really going to crack the next chapter of this case. So it was very moving for me to say that they were willing to help in and tell this part of their story. So it's just, it's incredible of people coming together from all colors and races and generations to tell the story. There's another question came from YouTube. Has any of your members done DNA testing?
Not yet. Yeah.
So yeah, that's, you know,
Hey,
that's.
Ernest, I did want to say that I know someone had mentioned when we talked about the DNA testing when we were in North Carolina, and the gentleman Hunter had done something that connected him back to some parts of Africa. And we have started talking in DC, and I was going to mention it, so that's a good thing that it came up now. That my cousin Lewis would go and do a DNA. So we're just looking to see if you know how we can pull that together. And he's definitely willing to go and do that, because my understanding is that we needed a male to go, and he's Lewis Henry Young, so he's our closest male that we have here. So definitely we want that to be like our next step, what we're working towards, pulling that together.
And we also have Michael Shell, who is also on this call, who is a male child of Lewis Henry Young. So he has also agreed to do a DNA test, if possible, or if he needs to be. My question is, which DNA company or which location should it be actually done in? Because I know that there are several different genealogy places that test the blood. So, you know, which one would we want to use for the most validity?
Yeah, that's a great question. You know, there are companies that specialize in African American DNA studies. So I would sort of hone in on some of those that are specifically target African American haplogroups. But yeah, I think, you know, if Henry Louis Gates has taught me nothing, that DNA is such a powerful tool to get folks back across that middle passage and actually tie you to a place. We talked about a lot of place tonight, but a place in Africa. Yeah, I mean, that's the end goal of all these stories, I would think, is to trace it back to the mother country. So yeah, let me do some research on that. I'll send you some stuff, because I'm very curious on that as well.
And I have a colleague, African American woman, who's she's a biological anthropologist in the DC area. She's at American, and her name is Dr. Rachel Watkins. And she worked with the group at Howard University that uncovered, that did the remember
African
Wall Street
burial ground.
The African burial ground. She was a part of that group, and she's in DC. So she would probably have some good recommendations of who you could go, and I can get that. Ernest, I can get that information to you, and then you can get to the family, or I can be found at Shaw University. So let's continue the conversation.
Okay.
This is
yeah, thank you.
Because it's another clue, and we're looking for every clue under every rock we can find. So yeah, I think that'd be a great next step. We've got one more question coming on YouTube. Somebody wants to know how the younger generation feels about this. What are the young people of your family? What do they think?
Well, I'm a young 56, and I am ecstatic, and I am, like, you know, really in awe, because I want to learn more, because I think that there are some things that have been uncovered that we are definitely a part of the hunters. If you read, what is it, the Hunters Trust, there were 3 main hunters, and they talk about the Hunter Trust. And I thought it was very ironic that the hunters moved to Chicago or to Illinois, the same place that some of our relatives moved to Illinois. And some of the descendants of the hunters also were a part of Gates County in North Carolina, the same place where Stuart Allison came from. So the connections are definitely there. We just have to find out how.
So I'm really intrigued about finding out how and why, the connection.
And Yolanda, that document that you and Richie have,
Yes.
we send it to Ernest. I don't know that he's seen that.
Okay.
Good point.
Wonderful. Yeah. So I think, exciting younger generations, because kids, they don't have enough history to appreciate or understand it. So it takes a lot to understand, to teach kids why it's important. We do it in the museum all the time, and sometimes we get through and sometimes we don't. But you have to try to instill that history early and to build up that appreciation, for sure, I think. One more question. People want to know, what are all the states where your family has spread to, or the countries?
Well, I live in Kennesaw, Georgia. I'm originally from New York, and we moved here in 2011.
I live in Harlem, New York, born and raised.
I live in Providence, Rhode Island. Did you hear me?
Yes.
Wait a minute. Hold on. Let me unplug this. That's Providence.
Wow.
And so I think the two main branches went to Washington and DC, 1930s. And there was a branch that went to Charlotte, and that's the most mysterious branch of the whole family, because I'm not sure if they died out or if there are any there. So it's funny, we have a hard time tracking our local families rather than the ones that moved away.
Ernest, are you referring to Elizabeth and Mary, Stuart Ellison's two other daughters?
I think it was Mary.
Mary, she married Fred Dedman and whoever that was.
So Valerie, you would recognize the Debnam name. So the Debnams play into this.
Who's the Debnam?
Well.
Oh.
They were benefactors of Shaw, if I'm not correct.
Yep, we have Devon Hall, so there's another connection. And I was just thinking that there were definitely some Shaw. There's got to be something in our archives that has to do with family, because we have Leonard Medical School that was started late 1800s. So
yeah, I think
it's tantalizing.
Shaw is going to reveal a lot of secrets for us, I think. So.
Yeah, because I think it was Fred Frank or Fred Debnam. He married Mary Ellison, so one of Stuart Ellison's daughters. And we don't know you're right, we don't know we can't get past those two, Mary and Deb. We don't know if they had kids, we don't know.
Well, we are pretty much at the end of our time, but I definitely wanted to give you guys one last chance to say your farewells and kind of sign off for us this evening. So any last thoughts on this evening?
Yes, I just look forward to continuing to do this. Again, I'm just so happy that to see all of my family every time I see them. This is, again, it's great that we're connected to North Carolina and the connections that we've made, but most importantly, we've connected to people who are alive, and our family in New York, we just haven't seen them in years, and just getting to know them, and they're like finding somebody new too for us, so that's even great. It's great that we found the other one, our ancestors, but it's great that we've reconnected with our family that's alive and here and well, and we all, loving each other right now, because the present is very important as well. The past is wonderful, but just having everybody, is great. So I just want to end with that. I love my family.
This is great. Oh, go ahead, Missy.
Well, I am so glad that this that we're having this lecture. I'm really glad that all of our family members are on the call. We will continue to have our Zoom calls either every month or every other month so we can continue to get to know each other, and more people have been added to our list. We now have about 45 family members and more added every single day. And so we are just excited. I think our next Zoom call will probably be November, where we'll have about 4 or 5 speakers, to come on, and they will share their research of what they found with Ancestry.com or Heritage. And we will continue our Zoom calls until our big family reunion next year.
I'd like to say thank you. I'm glad to meet everybody. I see Richie, Madeline, Michelle, love all of y'all. Ron, I love y'all. My DC family. Ernest, I wasn't sure. I came in late. I thought you was one of my family members too, brother.
Hey, I'm working on it, man. I'm gonna get honorary citizenship to the Hunter family.
I'm glad to meet all of y'all. See my family, my beautiful family, all different shades and sizes and colors. And if the baby wants to say hi to you, there's another one. There's another one of your family members. So God bless y'all, and I appreciate y'all. This is my first time jumping on, and I want to be continually connected to you all.
Sounds great. Well, with that, the only thing I have to say is that, the city is planning its first Juneteenth celebration next year. St. Paul's is sort of the moving force behind that, and we're going to have it at Dix Park. So it is a perfect time for y'all to come down and do a big family reunion. So we're working hard on that here for next year if COVID will let us, and we're still continuing to work on this research. So y'all stay tuned. And thank you all so much for joining.
Yolanda too. Love you, cousin Yolanda. I see you over there too. Love y'all all.
Wonderful. Well, again, thank you, Valerie and Missy and Richie and Juanetta thank you for being our speakers tonight. Thank you all the family. Thanks to Dix Park and RTN folks. And this video will be posted online along with the video itself. So please share that. And I hope everybody has a good evening.
And I just want to say happy birthday to Asia, since she did join us. Happy 21, girl. Thank you, thank you, thank you. You're welcome. Love all of y'all. Be peaceful, stay safe, and have a blessed rest of your evening. Love y'all.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Everybody have a good night. And thank you again.
Hello,
Love y'all.
Good night.